And I just want to say thank you for everybody that's joining us. I know we're 2 sessions in now, so your concentration is probably starting to kind of fade. But we're glad you're here and you chose to connect with us. I'm Cindy Dalmelin, and I'm partnering for this presentation with Jennifer Shimmick and with Shana Sutcliffe. And we are a part of something that's called Pathway to Positivity. This is an initiative that actually kind of started by chance when we attended a TCCTA program about positivity. And we were just coming out of COVID, and we just felt like we needed something on the campus to kind of counter a lot of the negative vibes that we were coming out of with COVID and just everything that had happened during that time. And positivity just sounded like such a really positive thing for us to do. So we met 2 individuals, Derek De La Pena and Bill Johnson. Derek had written a book, I don't know if you see it, Simply Positive. And this book was full of tips for bringing positivity into your life, but it was backed by science. And we loved that because we wanted to, get our students to see that it's not just, pie in the sky, happy thinking. There's really science behind it to the benefits. So Pathway to Positivity was formed, and every year we've chosen a theme. Last year we chose grit, and we talked about Angela Duckworth's book and grit and how that can benefit students. And this year we have chosen Surgeon General Vivek Murthy's work on Together. And that has been our theme in our courses, and we try to bring this to the campus in whatever ways we can. So let's see, it takes me about 3 clicks to change the slide. There we go. Okay, so this is Derek De La Pena and Bill Johnson. And if my hair looks a little funny and I look a little winded, it's because during lunch we tried to go shopping to bring a little positivity into our own lives. But anyway, this was at the TCCTA conference when we met them. Okay, so our theme today, Choosing Connections. What we hope to accomplish in this presentation is why is it important to promote connection on the campus and beyond? And what are the risks associated with loneliness? Does this really matter to us? And what are the strategies for improving connection from a personal level, to a family, to a classroom, to our campus community and beyond? So that's what we're hoping to talk about today. I wanted to start with a video from Vivek Murthy talking about loneliness, but I know that if we've been jumping around in a lot of other courses, it's kind of hard to concentrate and kind of really focus. So I thought we'd do just a real quick moment of let's all just take a deep breath, put our feet on the ground and kind of feel where we are and just kind of ground ourselves, and go ahead, just take a deep breath. I'm going to do my own right now. And let's just try to think for a moment about what does loneliness really mean? Oh, wait.
Oh, did you click?
I forgot to do the sound. I did. I forgot to do the sound. Okay, so that means I gotta reload. I'm so sorry. Okay, hold on 1 second. It won't take me long. I got the entire screen, but I forgot the little link at the bottom. Okay. There we go.
Is extraordinarily common. It is part of the human experience. If you are lonely, if you've been lonely, you are not alone. And it also doesn't mean that you are broken in any way. In fact, we've learned that loneliness is a natural signal like hunger or thirst that our body sends us when we lack something that we need for our survival, which is social connections. If you want to understand why that is, it has to do with how we evolved as human beings thousands and thousands of years ago, as beings who really needed connection to others to ensure safety, to ensure we had an adequate food supply. When we were together, taking turns, watching for predators, when we were sharing our food supply, we did better together. So there is no shame in feeling lonely, even though society often tells us that we've done something wrong, or if we somehow find ourselves alone on a Friday night, or if we feel lonely on the playground, or in the cafeteria at school. Perhaps most insidious, but most harmful, is the impact loneliness has on our sense of self. Over time, we come to believe when we're lonely that we're lonely because we're not likable, which makes it harder to take a risk and a chance in conversation. So in that way, loneliness can be a downward spiral. And part of the challenge and the mission to build a more connected society and a more connected life is figuring out how do we break that downward spiral so that we can once again rebuild connection, which is what we're naturally called to do.
I like this video where Vivek is kind of explaining how sometimes we internalize this loneliness that it somehow has something to do with me, something I've done, maybe something I'm being punished for, and then the resulting isolation that comes from it. And so what this can do to us, not just to ourselves, but also to our society. Okay. Let me go to the next slide. There we go. Okay, so the power of connection and why relationships matter. That's what I'm going to talk about. And I think it's kind of interesting to start with. Let's talk about relationships, because in the classroom, I can't think of a subject that students want to talk about more than their relationships and how those matter to them. So it gets their attention right away. And what we're hoping to do with this, the goal is to help students discover how this is has a profound impact on our connections, our human connections. And we want to also help promote understanding of why these relationships are essential for our well-being, and we can support this with research. And then we want to engage together to shape our lives and our society. And we can see this in the research as well. So when we choose a topic, one of the things that we want to make sure we do is that we're supporting it with the science, and we're teaching our students about the research and what goes into that, and how to read it and how to understand what it means. And so this is all, it's tying into a concept and at the same time teaching them how to learn about that. So I want to kind of introduce you to some of the experts in the field, and I'm sure this may be a familiar face to you. This is Brene Brown. She's known for her ground theory work with vulnerability, and she talks about shame and how with shame we isolate, and how the healing component of that is connection, safe connections. And here she's talking about belonging, and she's giving a little tip about the difference between belonging and fitting in.
Belonging. We're wired for love. We're hardwired for belonging. It's in our DNA. But let me tell you what belonging is. The opposite of belonging from the research is fitting in. That's the opposite of belonging. Fitting in is assessing and acclimating. Here's what I should say, be. Here's what I shouldn't say. Here's what I should avoid talking about. Here's what I should dress like, look like. That's fitting in.
Yeah, so Brene has given us great books that we can go to. She's given us The Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, a lot of books on leadership, and all of them having to do with belonging and connection and how we get isolated with shame and disconnection. Another expert in the field is Robert Putnam, and we just recently did a Netflix teleparty with Robert Putnam's documentary about his life and his research. I'm not going to show you the whole trailer, but the first little part kind of introduces you to his work as a sociologist, kind of looking at the benefits of social connection and what he refers to as social capital. And how when we have good social capital and good social connection, we have good, healthy communities. Let me just kind of pull that back.
This is Bob. Bob's a big fan of clubs.
I belong to everything. That's my high school bowling team. I'm the tall one in the middle.
And this is a film about why you should join one, and how Bob discovered that the fate of America depends on it.
Harvard professor and award-winning writer Robert Putnam.
You've been described as the poet laureate of civil society.
Robert D. Putnam, for deepening our understanding of community in America.
He made people pay attention to a concept that most people had never paid attention to.
Social capital, social capital, social capital. Social networks have value.
I'd like to call on Professor Robert Putnam, who gave us the concept of social capital.
The number of people who know one another's first name, the number of people who take part in community organizations, the level of trust and reciprocity in the community.
The places that have better government are the places that have a long history of social networks and social capital.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of introduce you to him a little bit. I would strongly encourage you to watch this. It's on Netflix. It's really interesting. It's based on his work. His first research work was with a book that he later wrote called Bowling Alone. And a lot of sociologists, economists, different people talk about his results in that. And then his later work, Upswing, which was more recent, talks about, how do we get back to that time when as a society and even as a nation, we were more successful, we were more connected, and actually probably reported feeling better about ourselves. So it's really interesting and good work. There's other researchers. Let's just see if let me go to the next slide. There we go. There's other researchers that have done work on togetherness and belonging. You may be familiar with the Harvard study. This is Robert Waldinger and Mark Schultz, and they are directors of the world's longest scientific study of happiness. And what's so interesting about their results is when they interview all the participants in their study, it's not wealth or their jobs that they report that makes them happy. It's their connections, their relationships. They talk about those more than anything else. There's other researchers out there like Sherry Turkle. She's an MIT professor, and she's looking at technology and its impacts on human relationships and how these things, digital interactions, affect our actual feelings of closeness, our sense of connection to other people. She's written a book called Alone Together. There's Daniel Siegel. He's a psychiatrist. He is studying the neurobiology involved with, you heard Brene Brown talk about this wire for connection and how these relationships affect our development and our emotional well-being. And then, of course, I mentioned to you already Vivek Murthy and his book, Together. As Surgeon General, he went out at the beginning of his position there and asked people about what they felt like was the biggest health crisis facing us as a nation. And he said what he found was interesting is more than any kind of health illness, they talked about the lack of connection and feeling lonely. And that's what kind of inspired him to write the book Together. So again, all things that contain research that we can show our students that this isn't just something that we're, be happy and we're just kind of telling you to do. There's actually science that supports it. So let me just talk really briefly about some of the science behind it. Our brains, like we said, are naturally wired for social connection. We are social creatures, sometimes referred to as social animals. But as you heard Vivek say in his video, one of the things is that we have survived better in groups. So there's these benefits to us, and we've evolved to really crave these relationships. We want community for safety, for support, for shared resources. So some things that support this is like our brains and our neural pathways, and we have hormones such as oxytocin that bond us with another person. You've probably heard of this one, and perhaps you've heard about like when a mom has a baby and they have what they call this skin to skin time, where they place the baby on the mom's bare chest and they spend this time together. What is happening there in the brain is this flooding of oxytocin that is bonding them together, and that's a really important time. Neurotransmitters like dopamine, the love drug, the feel-good chemical that releases this. This is what makes us feel that feeling of being in love. I always ask my students, what does it feel like to be in love? And I talk about how my heart beats faster when that person walks in the room, or my face flushes. Well, this is because of dopamine. And we like that feeling and we want to repeat it. New science is talking a lot about, not that it's new, but we're learning more about it, is the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is a nerve that goes from our brain to our heart and other organs. And when it's stimulated, it helps us to relax. It helps us to feel calm and safe. And so you'll find a lot of exercises on how to stimulate the vagus nerve. Did you know that singing stimulates your vagus nerve, or an ice cold plunge stimulates that vagus nerve? And then after that initial shock, we feel better, we feel calmer, we feel safer. So psychological underpinnings of our sense of connection, this deep-seated need to belong, and this emotional well-being that we need for survival. Some things that you may have heard of: attachment theory by John Bowlby, where we form these secure attachments in our childhood and infancy and childhood. And when we have those secure attachments, we feel safe. And then we bring that to later relationships in our lives. In secure attachment, we tend to become more avoidant. Social support. Susan Peeker has done research where she has looked at people in the blue zones and why do they live so long? And one of the things that she's discovered is that it's not what we eat. It's not the beautiful environment that they're living in. It has to do with those relationships, having those close relationships that help us feel that we belong and that we are supported. And then Brene Brown in her work talking about empathy, how we actually have these mirror neurons that help us to kind of have a sense of what somebody else is experiencing. And it gives us a sense that we can understand or connect to what they might be feeling. So, okay, so studying connection and togetherness in the classroom, like I said, it helps us build the students' understanding of learning these concepts and the research and the researchers behind them, the science that supports them, but also the personal benefits that it brings to their own lives. So I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer and let her talk about loneliness. I'll stop sharing.
Okay. Oh, wait, okay. Okay, can you see my screen? Yes. No, now you can? I don't know what's happening. Yes. Look, okay. I don't know where to look. Anyway, I'm following the light. Okay, well, this is the part of the presentation that's not as uplifting as the positivity research. I get to share literally kind of the gray area of loneliness and the toll it takes on our bodies. I have to say a couple of things first, though. Watching the Robert Putnam trailer when he says, it lists all the clubs he was in, and he says, I belong to everything. I'm like, that's me. And then everyone else is like really cautious, like she wants to do another thing. Don't do it. Let's not. It's too many. I think think that. Another thing, when you were talking about the research and connection, something recently that I learned is saunas. Like you were talking about the cold plunges, but the saunas are really good for the brain as well. Is it Scandinavia? I don't know. I was trying to look it up real fast because I recently learned about it, but is it the sauna, or is it they get in the saunas as a community? Like every evening they all go get in the sauna and have conversation, but there's like this benefit of like brain health and all the things, longevity and anyway, there's lots of research about different things and things that are working, but they're bringing people together in groups, and that's really cool. Okay. Well, this is part of the presentation that's looking at loneliness, and we'll look at this in the workplace, and we'll look at this among college students and see what the data are showing. This is a quote by Mother Teresa. If we have no peace, it is because we forgot we belong to each other. And so part of this presentation is to give you both ends of the research on the loneliness and the research on positivity. And then we'll wrap up with how do we live this out and how we make this all work. So loneliness is a nudge to pursue human connection. So like you saw in the video, it is like food and water are relevant to our survival. Our hunger and our thirst let us know it's time for lunch or breakfast, or it's been a really long time since we've had any hydration or nutrition at all. Loneliness and that feeling of loneliness reminds us that we need to reach out to someone. We need to when's the last time we've been in connection, seen somebody's face, that sort of thing. So it takes a health toll. Loneliness does. There's a lot of research and even things kind of hot off the press, even in 2025. But if you just look at the numbers, I won't read all of these things here, but millions of people are reporting feeling lonely and never feeling close to people, feeling depressed. Loneliness is associated with psychological distress, especially among college students. It's is not good for you. It's like you just as soon smoke 15 cigarettes a day. It's associated with disease. There's a recent study that just came out in the Nature of Human Behavior in January. It was 42,000 participants in the study, showing that loneliness influences our protein levels in our body. So looking at the biology of that, increasing these inflammatory markers that are associated with cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, stroke, and dementia, right? So it is taking a toll on our health, and this is even after they adjusted for age, education level, smoking, and alcohol use, right? Age is not a predictor of loneliness. Oh, sorry. So heart disease, stroke, depression, how many dollars are we spending each year in loneliness and the impact and the toll it's taking on us? That's 154 billion a year. Increased risk for early death from all causes, including suicide. So just to kind of tease apart some terms, sometimes they get blended together. But there is a difference between loneliness, isolation, and solitude, right? Isolation is that physical state of being alone. And this can be common in old age, when there is disability and physical limitation, and individuals are isolated from others. And so isolation is a risk factor for loneliness. Solitude and appreciating your alone time is a good thing, right? This is a time to just kind of reflect, re-energize, refocus, and connect with yourself. And when you have some space, some quiet time and time of solitude with yourself, it helps you better pour into others, and just be a better friend, a better listener, a better parent, etc. So again, loneliness is that feeling that you're lacking the connection that you need. So when you're kind of feeling that way, reflect on when is the last time you've had lunch with a friend or reached out with someone. Okay. Dimensions of loneliness. There's 3: intimate, relational, and connective. And I think the biggest thing on this slide for me is these definitions for each of these. It's longing for a confidant, yearning for social companionship, and a hunger for network or community where you share that sense of purpose and interest in something. Personality, in terms of these 3 dimensions, are not a factor. So it doesn't matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert, but longing, yearning, and hunger. Clearly there's a need. So taking a glance at loneliness in the workplace, lots of people are reporting they're unsatisfied with their social connections at work. And the less really you spend time with people, the less time you may feel like you need them. And the more time you spend with people, it's like, that was great. I'm glad I went. I'm glad I showed up. 40% don't feel a sense of connection with colleagues, feeling like they're working in a vacuum, or they're not contributing, or their work doesn't really matter to others. So underappreciated, unrecognized for the things that you're doing. Sometimes you don't have a close connection or relationship where you feel like you can lean on your colleagues to ask for help. That can be an issue as well. And so that environment, the feedback from the environment, reinforces loneliness or deflates it, right? Where it's bringing people together. So I think thinking about your own departments, how connected are you? Are there people within the institution or even in your own department that you enjoy working with, that make it, that just really bring life and are life-giving in terms of your job or your career? Okay, college students and loneliness. This data is recent from February of this year, earlier this month, actually. This information is from Active Minds, and ACC has an Active Minds chapter on the campus. And so they're always sharing information about mental health and finding activities and doing things to bring awareness to things, and also how to support one another and show college students how to support someone struggling with mental health. So 64% of college students report feeling lonely. Half of them are concerned about a peer's mental health. 3 in 10 are reporting psychological distress. So remember, there is an association between loneliness and psychological distress. The LGBTQ plus students, 70% identify as lonely. So if you're reporting loneliness, you're 4 times more likely to report distress. So just numbers, I think, this is just data and statistics, but it gives you an idea of, how often these things are happening and kind of the severity of them and the need for attention and awareness and to do something as a college community. 62% students believe mental health is important on campus. Only half of the students are saying that other students are trying to do something about this on their campus to improve mental health within their community, whether that's awareness or resources or activities that bring students together. And the more lonely students are, the less concern and the less shared concern they have about mental health. Right? So it's feeling lonely is maybe contributing to that lacking 50% of students who are engaging in things to improve campus life. Caring about mental health is necessary for lots of things: engagement, retention, completing their degree. There's data on 2-year versus 4-year institutions where students are reporting that 4-year institutions, maybe there's more happening on campus. There's some factors that could contribute to that. Maybe they're living on campus. Universities are, students are more likely to be there, whereas community college or commuter schools. And so some things may be contributing to that data. But nonetheless, regardless, if it's a university or a 2-year institution, I think faculty and staff, we are in a position to support college students in a variety of ways to change this epidemic that we're in of loneliness. So loneliness negatively impacts personal health, productivity, and health of society. The founder and director of Active Minds, she put it this way in this study, this recent report that came out, that loneliness is a clear factor in the well-being of college students. Together, as champions of well-being, we can transform isolation into community and loneliness into belonging. And I think that's the case for college students and also the staff and faculty on college campuses. What can we do to bring people together? And that's been our theme this year. And so Shayna will pick it up from here and talk about some practical ways that we can engage and live it out. Let me stop sharing.
Okay. I will share mine.
Okay.
Okay. So I think that Jen and Cindy have talked about a lot of the research behind loneliness and the importance of connection. My bit is really about how might we go about doing that in all the little different kind of buckets that we live in. So the first one, oh, that's not it. There we go. The first one is connecting with students. I think as teachers, just kind of by our nature, we are interested in the students, or I don't know what we would be here for. And I think that it's kind of part of the way that we all kind of recognize that our classes work better if we are engaged with our students, if we are talking to them, if we have good rapport with them. One of the ways that we can do that is to make sure that our communication is really open. I'm a therapist by training, and so communication is really important to me. And I think that it's a good model for our students if we acknowledge when we drop a ball, or whoops, I forgot to put the grade in, or something. When we kind of acknowledge that we are flawed too, it helps them feel more comfortable, I think, in disclosing when they make a mistake or they have kind of stepped out a little bit. If we are encouraging questions, obviously, I think all of us on campus would really like for our students to ask for help. But it's hard, you know. I think Jen alluded to, like, it's especially if there's like kind of shame around it, like I don't understand, I feel dumb, all these things. But if we are kind of setting that model and being able to encourage students to engage with us on a human level, they're way more likely to ask us a question about content or, you know, something that they don't understand. If we have multiple avenues for contact, so you can get me by the phone. Nobody but Jen ever calls me on this phone, and IT calls me on this phone. I've had actually 2 in the last couple of weeks. Wrong numbers. I don't know. Hello, somebody called me from this number. They absolutely did not do that. I call Jen and IT, and that's all I call on that phone. I don't know, but it's available for students if they want to call. They can Teams us, they can come to office hours, they can send a message. I think Blackboard, that messaging system, I think is great. It kind of helps students who may not be able to figure out their email or whatever get in contact. I think it's pretty great. If we are asking questions about students, it invites them to again, see us as human and know that we see them as human too, and that's how we build rapport with people. I ask my students, because it takes forever to for the computer to turn on, to load or whatever it does, in one of these rooms in here. And so while we're waiting for the, the thing to come, I just ask them, you know, anybody gonna do anything good this weekend? And most of the time, no, I gotta go to work, or I got a test, or I gotta whatever. And then I just kind of make it a joke about, like, oh my God, how can I live vicariously through you guys if you're not doing nothing? Please go out and do something and then tell me all about it. And then sometimes they'll be like, well, I've got a birthday party this weekend, or my cousin's getting married, or my stepmom just had a baby, so we're gonna go hang out with her. Like, whatever, these kind of milestone, interesting things that they're doing, or they're gonna go to a Comic-Con, or they're gonna do something. And that invites engagement between the students. And we can kind of, you know, celebrate this milestone if that's what it is, or ask some follow-ups about, like, hey, you said last week you were gonna do this. How'd that go? And I think it just helps build rapport. And if we are visible, that also helps build rapport with our students. So I have an open door policy. If I am in this room, chances are the door is open. It is not right now, just in case. But for the most part, if I'm in here, whatever, come on in. And if we are showing up at campus events too, if the students are able to see us, not just in our office and not just in the classroom, if they're able to see that we are also plugged in, it kind of sets a model, I think, for them to also connect. And that leads me to the next thing, where we are encouraging students to connect to each other. This picture actually is 2 of my students from last last spring at the Wellness Walk. The theme was grit. So Pride Alliance did a sand art thing, because sand is gritty, you know. And there they are. Those 2 girls met in my class, got to be friends through discussions and stuff that we were having in class, and then they started hanging out, and they came to the Wellness Walk together and did the thing. And how nice was that? So if we have class engagements that foster discussion, it can be chitty chat things, but it can also be content based. If we encourage their participation in campus events, I personally give extra credit for going to, like, joining a club and going to the meetings. You have to send me documentation for that. I give extra credit. These 2 girls got extra credit for going to the Wellness Walk, but they have to document that they went, and not just like poke their head in, but like went. If we're able to encourage study groups, or even create them for our classes, I think that's a good way for students to connect together, not just about content, but all of the study groups that I ever participated in the entire time I was in all of the college I went to, we got way off topic quite a lot. We talked about personal stuff, and then you develop friendships, and then you continue that outside of the class. ACC has started some intramural sports for the students, and it's another thing that we can show up for them for. And also they've started doing faculty v student games. I want to say they had like dodgeball or something. In the fall, they've done quite a number of events. And again, the more that we participate in things, the more the students participate in things. I do want to kind of speak to a point that Jen made about big schools, universities, and having on-campus housing. I think really kind of makes a difference in how much students engage on campus. I was talking to some folks at TCCTA last weekend about from Kilgore College that has on-campus housing. And they have a lot of issues similar to us, but they have quite a lot of engagement because students are there. So, and having graduated from there and having lived on that campus, I still have friends that I met there, right? So, so I think kind of trying to build in these naturally occurring opportunities for students to engage with each other, make them feel more connected to the campus. So, again, if we are able to, as faculty, kind of be the model for that, if we are enthusiastic about what's going on campus, I think it's infectious. It's the students pick that up. Which is not to say, especially with our population, which is not to say that they can always engage on a high level. We see a lot of kind of flux and flow in our club participation. It starts off really well in the fall, kind of by Christmas and spring, we're working on it. But again, if we are able to join or sponsor clubs, it gives them another opportunity to plug in, but it gives us an opportunity to plug in too. So this part of the talk is not just for students, it's for us faculty as faculty, but also as people to find those places that we can get connection to. So we don't feel quite so isolated. Attending events, using shared spaces. If we go to the cafeteria and get lunch, if we go to the library and use the facilities, if we go to the gym and use the facilities, students are then encouraged to use them too. And also it builds, for us, we feel more of a sense of community on this campus. These two pictures are me and they started a volleyball team in the fall, and she was on the volleyball team. That's my friend's kid. I mean, my kid's friend. So, going out and supporting her. We've all got probably baseball kids and softball kids and whatever. So I try to go out at least 1 or 2 games every season, especially when I have kids on the team or students on the team, to just kind of show my face and I'm supporting you, and it gets them more plugged into your class a little bit because they feel more connected to you. They know that you are supporting them. They're gonna, kind of maybe make more of an effort in your class. And then the bottom picture is from the toy drive that Psi Beta did with the Blue Santa program. And Jen and I are the co-sponsors for Psi Beta. So we worked with the group members there to collect toys for the Blue Santa initiative. And one of those students and I dressed up in our Christmas trees when we went and collected toys around the campus. So again, it just makes us feel like we are part of this community as a campus when we are plugged in that way. And with coworkers too. Like Cindy and Jen had said that that especially with kind of an increased reliance on technology, we're working with these hybrid models now, where we don't see our students very, as often as we did before. We do a lot more online classes, but that means that we don't see each other as much as we might have either before we made these transitions. So we have to kind of do it on purpose. We often don't just kind of accidentally run into coworkers or friends or whatever. We have to kind of reach out on purpose. It may be that if we're going to be connected, we have to be the one to initiate. So reaching out, making small talk, even if it's uncomfortable. That's how big talk happens, because it starts as small talk and then you get big talk. Leave a candy on somebody, like just whatever. And recognition, if we are, see something, say something about bullying, it needs to go the other way too. If you see somebody doing a really great job, if you see somebody kind of struggling, even like, hey, I see that you may be having a hard day. Let's chat about it. You want a coffee? I'll go get you a Diet Coke. I got a chocolate in my office. You want something? So kind of just being tuned in to other people. And then kind of widening that out to the larger community. ACC is, I think, pretty good about having a lot of connections to not just Alvin City, the city of Alvin, but all the communities around. We work with all of those ISDs. Stacy Ebert has her fingers in a gajillion different companies and really works hard in trying to address community needs and how can we get our students plugged in, but that's something for us too. Active Minds has started the Student Success Network, so we are doing volunteer activities once a month or so. This picture is from Devereaux Advanced Behavioral Health. The other day, just earlier in this month, we took some students, Jen and I, to their facility and did a fun night with the residents there. And then for sure, students could continue to volunteer there. We've got some other things coming up about that too. Houston Food Bank, Roxy Patton's working really hard over in the Student Resource Center to get students connected to social support networks of some kind, like SNAP and WIC and those kinds of things, but also getting the Houston Food Bank to partner with us to provide assistance. And I think that's a great way to kind of really bring in the community. So off campus, not ACC, it's a great idea to just join a club, join a group, join a something. Robert Putnam was not kidding when he said that there's been a real disconnection from our larger communities, which has been detrimental to us as individuals, because we have pulled back. And I think part of that is the technology and the reliance on those things. So the more connected, it could be hobby groups, it could be mommy groups. When my baby was, she's 19, she's not a baby, but when my kid was itty bitty, I joined a mommy day, like play date group. I got kicked out, honestly, because all the meetings were when she was asleep. So we didn't go, and they had a requirement for attendance, which I think was dumb. So that group was not for me. It may not, the first one you join may not be for you. That's totally fine too. Just kind of keep working till you find your people. But it can be a really daunting task, I think, sometimes to feel like, I'm not connected. I don't even know how to do that. They already seem connected. I don't know how to stick my toe in there. What if they don't like me? What if I don't like them? All of those things kind of keep us isolated, but we just stay isolated then if we don't kind of take that risk. Brené Brown talks a lot about vulnerability. And if we are not willing to be vulnerable, nobody else is going to be vulnerable with us either. So we have to kind of take that risk. We risk being hurt by it, but we could also be really rewarded by it too. So, I don't want to cut off my rewards in fear of not being rewarded from it. Volunteering is really good for you. There's a gajillion ways to do that. Your personal relationships are really important, obviously. That's me and my family. We all look very blonde. We are not. At the Grand Canyon a few years ago, so we spend a lot of time on road trips and stuff like that. So there's a lot of talking that happens in the car. But it's really important to stay connected. There's research that shows that married folks tend to live a little bit longer in certain circumstances, mostly, especially the men, because the women are like, hey, you need to go to the doctor and get that bump looked at. Hey, did you follow up on that thing? But our friends are important in that way too. I certainly have friends who encourage me to take care of myself better than I probably would otherwise. And so that's really helpful, but it's us looking out for each other, right? So when we are disconnected, we tend to have worse health outcomes because nobody's looking out for us. Nobody has said, hey, have you seen Jane in the last few days? I wonder what's going on with that. I watch a lot of murder shows. And as terrible as it is, I do also appreciate it, when somebody at work or their friends haven't seen them today, they won't answer the phone. So we're going to go to their house. We're going to check on them. And I mean, they find terrible things, but it's that connection that kind of, that gets it found, gets it addressed. You know what I mean? Like, so we tend to live a little bit longer when we have strong relationships, people who are looking out for us. Both on the research calls it the weak link and the strong link. So weak link is like acquaintances, people you just kind of run into every once in a while. Strong link are the people who are kind of more intimate, the more intimate circle. Regular communication in person is best. Research shows that eyeball to eyeball engagement, face-to-face engagement far surpasses any other kind of engagement. But all the other kinds of engagement, online text, all that stuff is better than none. So sometimes the in-person is harder to manage just logistically. But it's okay to, I mean, it's still good to reach out and text them, call them, something. Planning social activities. Social activities often don't happen by accident, and being mindful of each other's goals and offering emotional support. Again, this vulnerability, if I am willing to be vulnerable, then these other people are more likely to call on me too. And then as the other folks have mentioned, Jen, I think specifically being able to connect to yourself, having engagement, downtime that allows for self-reflection, going outside, letting, vitamin D hit your skin, prioritizing self-care. I hate that term, hate it, but it's the term we have. So, but it's not always what feels like indulgence is. Taking care of yourself also looks like making sure that you picked up your meds from CVS, or that you have clean clothes, or again, that you have let the sun shine on your face for, more than 30 seconds from the door to the car. Keeping your brain active, and then setting really good boundaries. So I've talked about a lot of ways to connect with students, encouraging student connection, us to the campus and us to the community, and all these different things, which sounds like, oh my God, I'm going to be so busy, I have no more minutes. And that's true. So we have to be really careful about what we say yes to and what can just fall away. And for me, to make sure that I am spending all the extra minutes, we are all really busy at work and we have these big jobs, and it requires a lot of us, a lot of our brain activity, a lot of our minute activity. So it requires a lot. So my general rule of thumb is if it's not a hell yes, then it's a no. If I'm not enthusiastic or excited about saying yes to this thing, giving my very precious minutes to this thing, I might need to pass. So I want to kind of open it up for everybody else. I can't actually see chat stuff, nothing. I can see the three of us, and I can't even see me. So I hope I haven't looked really dumb. So it's your turn. I want to know, kind of open up the discussion. How do you already connect with students and the campus? How do you already connect with yourself and other people? On a scale of 1 to 10, how lonely are you? And what might you do to improve that score? If you're at a 3 right now, how might you get to a 4? Like, I'm not even asking for like, how do you get to a 10? I don't know. I don't even know what 10 would
I can
look like.
answer that.
Great. Answer that.
Hi, I'm Rosalinda Esguerra. I teach English faculty. I'm an English faculty. Sorry, I'm driving. I'm gonna scale from 1 to 10 as my loneliness. I would have to say it's like an 8. I'm a mother of 7. 6 kids live with me, so
That's a lot.
loneliness
Yeah.
doesn't exist in my house.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's a really good point, that when we are surrounded by people, it definitely doesn't feel like we are necessarily lonely. We are definitely not isolated. We are not alone. That is for sure. But we can still feel disconnected and lonely even when we are surrounded by people all the time. It's the quality of those relationships, I think, that is more important, more I don't want to say more important, but I don't have any other word, than the quantity, right? So it sounds like you've got quantity, but it also sounds like you've got really good quality with those
Yes,
7 kids.
I think it's important to be a part of my kids' lives in every
Yeah,
aspect. I grew up, I'm a first generation. Both my parents worked all the time, so I never saw them. So I didn't have that connection with my parents.
Mhm.
I had 4 other siblings, so we were somewhat connected, but my older ones, I didn't know them well. Um, but yeah, I can say that at my home, I make sure there's a lot of interaction between us. We eat
Mhm.
meals together. That's really important. So
Yeah,
everything I do with my family is because I didn't do it when I grew up in my previous immediate family.
yeah. I think that's a really good point, honestly, because you know, as we establish our own families and we're grown-ups and we're trying to build our own lives, a lot of us are trying to kind of fill in the gaps. What we didn't grow up with, I want to make sure that I do with my kids, or but sometimes we don't have the skill set because we didn't grow up with it. We got to figure out what are the skills required to connect really well with my kids. If I didn't get that model set for me when I was growing up, how do I go about doing that? Um, and it's not always kind of intuitive. Um, for everybody. But I love that you're doing these things intentionally. Like you are seeking out your kids and doing it on purpose, saying yes to things on purpose with your kids, having dinner together on purpose with your kids. Um, so I think that's a really kind of a built-in way to connect to the people who are most important to you. So good job. Anybody else? How do you already connect with students on the campus? What are you guys doing there?
I can read from the chat for you, Shayna.
Okay.
Alex says, I'm the sponsor of the reading club when it is active. So there's some
Mhm.
campus engagement. I have family and friends. He says, I don't experience severe loneliness, but he does mention I need to get out of my house more and socialize offline since so much of my socialization is online via phone. I mean, that's so
For
true. I mean,
sure. Yeah.
I really have started tracking my screen time because I don't think I'm spending that much time with social media until I get that message on Sunday morning is when mine comes through on Sunday morning. And it tells me how much I averaged every day. And I'm in shock how much time I'm spending with that. And so, yeah, so I heard somebody saying the other day, just start paying attention to when you're sending a text to somebody, maybe say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna pick up the phone and I'm gonna call them, or I'm
Mhm.
gonna, walk down to their office and say it rather than, it's just so easy to go to the digital. So I think to be more connected, it is an intentional act.
Mhm. I think, your kids are a bit older than mine. Jen's got kids about my kid's age. I'm fairly sure she would rather cut off her arm than have a conversation on the telephone. Her friends call her 0% of the time, unless unless the world is on fire. She is very much a digital engager. Um, very, very, very much. Um, so I try to get her to go see people face to face, like get out of my house. Or they could come over, that's fine too, but I would really like her to get out of the house.
Deanna has
But
her hand
eyeball to
raised too.
eyeball is
Just
really
FYI.
important. Deanna, go ahead.
Yeah, I think with my students, doing going to their activities, seeing their activities
Mhm.
and things like that. And even like you said, before class starts, while you're getting the computer set up, getting involved with their conversations and what they're doing or what they're going to be doing. I think it's easier sometimes at the high schools with the dual
Mhm.
credit because they tell you everything. Sometimes you don't want to know.
Yeah.
Than the adults at ACC. But in terms of my life, I find I'm not as good at that. I was better before kids. now my life is my kids, you know, so it's like every now and then adult conversation would be nice. And I do better on the phone. I don't do as well online. So I have people that text me and I don't answer them for a while, and then they threaten to send out search parties for me. So everybody's kind of different, but and your life changes. I had somebody that I took care of for a while with dementia. And that, even though I had the kids and everything else, and I had people that I knew and I talked to, that was probably a lonely period because I didn't talk much about that. It was my main focus, but it wasn't a topic of conversation that came up.
It's
so
a
you
hard
can kind
one.
of have.
Yeah, and that's why those support groups for people who are caregivers are so important. Those, those caregivers need breaks. They need places where they can talk about those, things that they're doing and frustrations. I mean, it's kind of, I think we're caregivers too, and it's complicated because it's like, you want to be supportive and you want to do the right thing, but there's some days when you're just like, I just don't want to do it today, and you need
Or you
somewhere
can't
to vent
go
that
to the
frustration.
support
Yeah.
group.
Yeah. Well, so I
Yes,
think
that
I think that one of that when we're going through those like really heavy things, like it's tough to be the caretaker of somebody with dementia on a number of layers. And it's really hard to talk about it. It feels really heavy. And I know that like when I personally, when I've gone through some really big, heavy things, I find it difficult to talk to even the people that I'm very close to about it because I don't want to, it's just really heavy. It's heavy for me. I don't want to give it to them. It's heavy. It's hard. I don't want to burden them, give it to them, all that stuff. But I also know, well, I mean, I hope I know, that they would be willing to hold that too. Like they would be fine and they would want honestly to know about it.
And that's that
So,
Brene Brown,
but
that
it's that vulnerability thing. It's hard to break through that a little bit. To, and I think your point about, especially women when they have kids, everything about your life changes. You were, grown up and you were doing grown up things before, and now you're just butt wiping and cutting baby food and buying shoes every other week. And like, all of the things have changed then. And it's hard to find those minutes. They suck all the minutes. They
I
took
want
all
to
the
say,
minutes.
I want to say too, like one of the things I've noticed is that COVID broke our rhythm. I think we had a rhythm of engagement and places and things that we were a part of, and COVID kind of shut us down. And I think it's been really hard to get back into that rhythm of, belonging and doing. And I just don't think we've quite come back all the way from where we were before. And some things may not come back. So
yeah.
I think it
Denise
changed
put in the-
relationships too.
Yeah.
Because you had the isolate crowd and you had the non-isolate crowd.
Yeah.
And I had a kid that isolation would have killed him. He needed to be out. So there were friends that I don't even really talk too much anymore because we went.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what he needs to do. My daughter could go either way. And so we went. And there were people that were like, you shouldn't be doing that. And I said,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last few years have been really hard. For sure. So that is, I think we were till 11:45, right? I'm asking you guys.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
So we are at 11:44. I just wanted to say thank you so much for you guys to come and spend this time with us, being connected.
Choosing to
whatever.
connect. Choosing to connect with us.
And I appreciate you guys sharing your perspectives and your experience. So I really appreciate you guys coming out today.
I keep seeing faculty book club. Somebody needs to start one. I'll come support it.
I'm on it.
Find a book.
I'm on
I
it.
like
I'll
books.
get with Cindy at the library and ask her to help.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
reading.
Nice, yeah. Yeah, that'd be fun.
I love reviewing books. I think it's fun. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Thanks, Carrie.